In today's video, we're going to continue working with the Elastic Stack. We're going to install Winlogbeat, Sysmon, and start visualizing those logs in Cabana. We'll also teach you how to make your own visualizations. Thank you for choosing to watch this video. To help us help more people like you, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, hit the notification bell so that you'll get notified of our future videos. So let's get started. Last time we installed Elasticsearch, we installed Kibana, and we started bringing in host data on our server from Auditbeat. We briefly showed you the SIEM application. We're going to expand today by bringing in window event security logs using Winlogbeat. Then we'll actually show you how to make your own visualizations in Cabana, in addition to a little more practice on that SIEM application. The first thing we're going to do is add additional logging service to our Windows system. Now, for my purposes of this tutorial, I created a Windows virtual machine. You don't have to take that step. You could easily put this on whatever system you are hosting your server on. For instance, on a daily basis, I run Sysmon and Winlogbeat on my laptop, providing me an extra layer of security. So Sysmon, again, is an extra logging service. It monitors processes, it monitors DLL use, it monitors connections, network connections. So it really enriches the amount of data and the amount of threats that we can detect on a Windows host. And so I'm going to show you how to install that before we put Winlogbeat on. The easiest way is Google to find all our resources that we need. So we're going to Google Sysmon. So out of this Google search, we're going to want two separate links here. The first one is going to be from docs.microsoft.com, and it's actually going to be the Sysmon page. We're also going to come to Swift on Security GitHub because there is a sample Sysmon configuration that you can use, which is a great place to start. And I'll show you how you do that. So first we're going to open up the Microsoft site so we can download Sysmon. Okay, so this is the official Microsoft site for Sysmon. So we're going to be following these steps here. The first thing we need to do, obviously, is download it. So go ahead and click Download Sysmon. So once you have Sysmon downloaded, go ahead and extract it using the extract all, or if you have other zip-related software, feel free to use that to extract it. You're going to want to either extract it directly into the program files folder, or you can also just grab this and then drag a copy in. It's up to you. Either way is fine. So once it's in program files, go ahead and open it up, and you can see that there's the user agreement and the actual application. So the second piece that we got to go ahead and go get is a configuration file for it. So like I was saying, Swift on Security provides a very good sample configuration for you to start with. So we're going to use that one. Okay, so we're going, as you can see, Sysmon configuration file for everybody. Not only do they provide this as a good starting point, but it also allows a good starting point for others to make configurations that they might need for specific use cases, or they might want to enrich data, say with MITRE attack techniques. There's all sorts of different configurations that you can look at. And what you want to do here is look at the different forks that are available. And you'll see all the different ones that community members have made. So we're going to go ahead and download this then. So go ahead and, once you have the Sysmon config folder downloaded and extracted, go ahead and enter it, go into it, and find the Sysmon config export.xml file. Go ahead and drag a copy of that into the Sysmon folder that you put into program files. So here it is. So I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to drag a copy into the Sysmon folder. Then once I'm in the Sysmon folder, what I'd like you to do is to go ahead and right click here and rename it. And all we're going to do, we're not going to change too much. We're just going to get rid of the name export and leave it as Sysmon config. So before we install Sysmon, I want to show you what the configuration actually looks like. It looks like a large file, but what's going on here is we're excluding trusted processes, trusted file images, things that are going to be on the system, and we don't want to be alerting on them because we already know that they're not bad. So for instance, this is for process create, and it says on match, exclude. And it does this for all the different event types. So network connection on match, include, and then it shows different ones that shouldn't be connecting. So, you know, if it comes from the temp folder, it probably shouldn't be making a network connection. And what's nice about this configuration is that it's highly commented out, so you can see why they're making that particular rule. So we're going to go ahead and follow these instructions, and I'll tell you the command that we're going to use for our installation. For our installation, first of all, let me close this so I can show you how I got there. Go ahead and bring up your command prompt. Quick way of getting there, by the way, is just type it in there, CMD. Make sure to run it as administrator. And then navigate to your Sysmon directory. So program files, and then Sysmon. So the command we're going to use is going to be Sysmon, and then we're telling it we're installing it with a configuration, so -i. Then we want to give the name of the configuration. Now, if the configuration wasn't saved in the directory, then you would have to give the whole path, but since ours is, we don't have to. So sysmonconfig.xml. We're also going to want to go ahead and tell it to accept the EULA agreement. So we'll put that. Now what I'm doing here is we want to make all our hashes SHA-256 because by default, Sysmon uses SHA-1, and eventually that could cause problems with having distinct hashes for all of our values. -L will give you image loads, which are important. They're used a lot in threat attacks. And then -N will give you network monitoring. So that will monitor connections, DNS, and everything like that. Go ahead and push enter, and then it'll install it. We've installed Sysmon. I want to show you a really good way to make sure your installation worked and that it's running. So you're going to go into your search bar, and you're going to type in services. You're going to open the services app. Okay, these are all the different services that are running on your Windows machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down to the S's, and then notice here it has Sysmon and status is running. It even says who's it's log on as, which is the local system. It can be stopped, it can be restarted from here. So this confirms that Sysmon is on our machine, it's running, and everything's good. So we'll close this, and we'll move on to installing Winlogbeat. So to install Winlogbeat, first thing you want to do, always go back to the documentation site for Elastic. And what I did was I just Googled install Winlogbeat Elastic, and I was able to come to this page. And you'll have to download it. So go to the downloads page, and you have different options on how you can install it. You can download it as a zip file, which is what we're going to be doing. They're also working on a Microsoft installer, but as you can see, it's still in beta. And what that means is they're still testing it. It still might have some problems. So maybe down the line we'll use this installer, but for now we're going to want to make sure to click on the 64-bit Windows zip. So you'll click on that, and then it'll prompt you to download it. And so you can go ahead and download that. I've actually already downloaded it earlier, as you might say in a cooking show. So I've downloaded it, and I have it here in my downloads folder. And so what I'm going to do, it's zip, remember, so I'm going to go ahead and right click, and then I'm going to extract it. And then now it's extracted. Now if we go to the installation steps here, we can follow these, and it will tell you what to do. One thing that you have to do is you have to rename the file, the folder itself. So notice when we extracted it, it extracts as Winlogbeat. Then it has the version and the platform. We're actually going to have to rename that. One important thing, notice what they're asking you to rename it here. Winlogbeat, but with a capital W. That's very important. If you don't capitalize that W, it actually won't start. And that's a common problem a lot of people run into. I've run into it, and it finally occurred to me that, wait a minute, it's starting because the computer is looking for a capitalized W for the directory, but sometimes, most of the time, we wouldn't capitalize things. But so we're going to rename it. So go down to rename, and then very important, capitalize Winlogbeat. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and move that to our program files. That's what they want us to do. So you're going to tell it to move it to program files. And then it's going to ask you for permission to do it. And then now we should be able to go to the program files, and it'll be there. Now we're going to open up PowerShell. So just type power in your search bar and it'll come up. Or you can type out the whole thing, but it'll come up once you just type out power. Make sure to run as administrator. We're going to do CD. And when you put in this path, you're going to have to put this in quotes because program files has a space. So we're in program files. I just like to do it one step at a time because that way it's easier for me. Okay, so now we're in the Winlogbeat directory. We can give it a directory command. You can see everything in here. So we're going to be running this script, install service winlogbeat.ps1. So we're going to do // so it's in our path. Install service winlogbeat.ps1. Okay, and it's run. On some of your systems, script execution policies may not be set. If they aren't, then you're going to have to change. You're going to have to put these options in here on execution policy unrestricted. And they have an example on how you can do that on the documentation site. But basically, you have to let it know that it can run the script. And on my system, I have script running set up. But here they show you how to do this in the Elastic documentation to put execution policy unrestricted. You just put that option when you run it, and it'll run it without a problem. So now we can check our list of services. Well, I'm going to close it actually. We can go and check our list of services. We can confirm that Winlogbeat's in here now. And there we are. Winlogbeat has been added. The only thing we're going to change is notice it's set for automatic on that. We're going to want to come into properties, and we are going to want to change that to manual. And click. We want that on manual stop and start. Okay. And from now on, when we stop and start Winlogbeat, we'll just do it from here. You can do it from PowerShell, but we're actually going to go back to our Ubuntu machine and we're going to make a quick change to the Cabana configuration. Now, before we had access Cabana just from inside of our virtual machine, or in other words, from the same server that we were using it from. However, Winlogbeat is going to be on a different host, and from that host, we're going to have to connect to Cabana in order to load some dashboards and some index patterns that you want to use. You want to have them set up before you go to use it. So for our use case, we're going to have to come in here and change that. So I'm going to my terminal. I'm going to do sudo nano etc Cabana and then the configuration file, which is Cabana. And here it's going to want to know what the server host IP address is going to be. So right now it's in localhost. That's not what we want to do. We want it to be the IP address of this server. So we're going to do IP address and find what it is. So for me here, it's .110. So then I'm going to write that in. So 192.168.1.10. And so now anybody will be able to. So we've changed that IP address now. I also want you to go down and check which IP you have for your Elasticsearch host and make sure it's the same one. If you've been doing this video as one go through and it hasn't been that long time between the two parts, it should still be the same IP address. But depending on your home router settings, your IP address actually changes every so often. In my case, it used to be .7, now it's .10. So I actually need to make sure to change that on the Elasticsearch host entry. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to connect. So that's a good thing to check. And then in my case, I did it. I also did this for Elasticsearch. So etc/elasticsearch/elasticsearch.yaml. And again, I use Nano on the Nano editor. And I had to go down here to where the network settings are. So on network host, I had to change that to .10. And then on the discovery seed host, I also changed that to .10. This is one reason, while in a lab, it's okay just to use, changing DHCP addresses, but in a production area, they need to be reserved addresses that are going to stay constant because you don't want that changing in reality. And then I also had to do it in Auditbeat. I had to do it. So I went down here to the output section and I put the host. I changed that to .10. Everything else remained the same. It was just this last number. It used to be 7, now it's 10. So since I changed them all, I went ahead and shut down all the services. Again, I did that with sudo and then service and then Elasticsearch in particular. Stop. And then sudo service Cabana stop and sudo service Auditbeat stop. So I stopped them all. And then I'm going to start them all. So you want to start with Elasticsearch all the time. Start. And again, depending on how much RAM you're able to give your system, it could take a couple minutes for Elasticsearch to start up. Okay. Then we're going to do sudo service Cabana start and sudo service Auditbeat start. Okay. So leave those running, but you can minimize your virtual machine. Now what we're going to want to do is change our Winlogbeat configuration. So we're going to come in here, go to Program Files, go down to Winlogbeat, and then it's going to be Winlogbeat YAML. You can edit this with a lot of different programs. The best two are either going to be a program called Atom, which is free to use, and you just open it with Atom, and it'll keep all the YAML formatting. Another one that I like using, especially with YAML, is called Notepad++. And again, you can download either of those on the internet for free. They're really good because they highlight things with different colors, as you can see. So comments are green, important key names become blue. It just makes it easier to see everything, because otherwise it can get very confusing. So we're going to come in here and we're going to do a couple things actually. The first thing we're going to do is come down to the Cabana Setup, because we're going to be setting up our dashboards. And so we're going to want to come in here where it says host and backspace so it's no longer commented out. And then we're just going to enter that the IP address of that server. So in my case, it's 192.168.1 and then .10. We kept it at the default port of 5601, so we don't have to change any of that, which is good. We're not using Cabana spaces right now, so we don't have to set that. We just needed to put that IP address in. Then we're going to change the output Elasticsearch. We're going to change that host as well, because right now, by default, it's set for localhost, but that's not where we have it. We have it on that server. So we're going to do 192.168, and in my case, .1, .10. Just use that IP address that we found from your virtual machine, whatever your router might have given it. And those are the only settings. Just to show you some of the others, as you can see, if you change it to HTTPS, this is where you would uncomment and let it know that. If there was a username and password, you would uncomment these and then put them in here. And again, Elastic has made all that basic level security free to use now. It's no longer, requires a special license. So after you get comfortable with Elastic, I really suggest you watch some videos on how to set that up, so that when you're using it, maybe in the cloud or in a real production environment, you have a safe setup. You don't want them just open like this without passwords and such, because you'll get hacked. Okay, so we've changed all the settings we're going to change. Just to show you this up here, this is where the Winlogbeat tells it what logs it wants to. By default, it's set to do the security logs and the event logs for application and security, as you can see. And then it's also set to do the Sysmon logs. So 3 different log types are set up by default. If in the future, if you wanted to change that, you could go in here and actually write up your, different paths to whatever logs you might want. But for now, the default ones are actually really good. So in order to set up the Winlogbeat dashboards, we're going to go ahead and open PowerShell again. Again, remembering to run it as an administrator. And then we're going to navigate to our folder. Whoops. Navigate to our folder if we can remember where it is. Now it's in C and then Program Files /Winlogbeat. I always like opening, see what's in my directory. Just makes me feel better. So we're going to be running this winlogbeat.exe. And we're going to run the setup with the -e option. And what it's doing here is it's connecting to Elasticsearch. We can go over this real fast. It's connecting to Elasticsearch and then it's setting up the lifecycle policies. That's what an Elm policy is. It's lifecycle management. And then it's loading the template for that version of Winlogbeat. And then it says, okay, it's all good. Then it's actually connecting to Cabana. This is why Cabana had to be set up separately. And then it's loading the dashboards. So now it's all set up. So now we can start the service. What I like to do is just come in here to services. I like doing it here because this is a lot easier when you just want to quickly start or stop it. Again, you can do it from PowerShell. HTTP / and then the IP address of your server. So in my case, it's .10. And then it's going to be a colon, and then the default port for Cabana, which is 56.5601. It's just 5601. Push enter, and then you can see Cabana loads up. And then again, depending on how much RAM you're able to give, Cabana might take a little time to load, but we're ready to go. So from this Cabana home page, I want you to go to the first button, which is the Discover tab. The Discover tab, if you recall from the previous videos, where you go and you can actually see all the logs that are being taken. So you click on Discover. And then remember previously we were looking at Auditbeat, but if you click on the arrow, you now see that we have another index pattern, which is for Winlogbeat. So go ahead and click on the Winlogbeat pattern, and then you'll see the information and all the wonderful fields that are available. One nice thing about using the beats again is that it automatically puts it in Elastic Common Schema, which is the new standardized field names that everything is in. It's in this tree structure now. So like here's the host, which is like, you know, the root, right? And then you have a dot, and then host.hostname, host.architecture. And so that just makes it a lot easier when you have multiple vendors, when you have multiple pieces of software, they're all using the same name structures so that your data doesn't get confusing. You know exactly what it is, and you can actually share dashboards and machine learning jobs and everything between all these sources of data. So again, if you wanted to just use the SIEM application, you can go to this icon here, and you would click on it. And you could go to host, and then you can see that we have 2 hosts, and there's been user authentications, there's been IP address activity, and this is over the last 24 hours. And you can see one host was the factory, and the other one was the laptop that we're taking the information from now. So this is actually a very useful, powerful tool. But let's say you're either using it for you're using Elastic for something other than security, or maybe there's some sort of custom dashboard that you want to make yourself. You know, you don't want to just use this built-in. One thing is Winlogbeat, any of the beats do come with default dashboards. If you want to take a look at those, for instance, you go to the dashboard button here, and you'll see that there's a lot of different Auditbeat system ones. And then there's also the Winlogbeat dashboard. And it actually has a lot of useful graphs made for you already. And then the Auditbeat ones are just as useful. But let's say you still didn't quite go for it. You still want to be able to make your own stuff, or maybe you just want to become an Elastic certified engineer, and you need to know how to do this. So I'm going to do a demonstration of how to make a simple dashboard. First thing I'm going to do actually is put Cabana into dark mode, because I always run it in dark mode. And it's good to know how to do that. So we're going to go to the Management tab. We're going to go into Cabana, which is here, and go to the Advanced Settings. And then if we scroll down, actually we could just type it dark. And you can turn on dark mode this way. Save it. You do have to reload the page for the change to happen. And notice that, yes, you can break stuff here in the settings. But this is also where you would come and change like CSV separators, day of the time formats, location formats. This is where all the Cabana formatting goes. Settings. And then also, this is very important on the SIEM. This is how you would add custom indices to the SIEM. Is notice here it says Elasticsearch indices. This is all the index patterns that the SIEM application is going to look at for data. So if it's pulling network, if it's pulling host data, notice it's even pulling APM, which is application monitoring data. This is where if you have a firewall that you want pulled in, or if you have some sort of custom intrusion detection system you want pulled in, you just put a comma and then put the index pattern that's associated with those indices. And then it'll automatically pull it into the SIEM application. So this was actually really good to show you, other than the fact that I always run Cabana in dark mode for the sake. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is go to the Visualize tab. We're going to go ahead and click Visualize. And this is all the visualizations, but we want to create a new one. So we're going to create visualization. And let's say we want to create a pie chart. So we're going to click on pie chart. We're going to choose a source. And we're going to use Winlogbeat as our source index pattern. Okay. So far, it's just blank. So we're going to leave the aggregation on count. There's different ones, but we're going to leave the aggregation on count. But what we're going to change is the buckets. The buckets, you can think of them as the collection of data that's being aggregated. And I'll show you. So what we're going to do is split the slices according to the buckets. So we're going to select an aggregation type. I like terms because terms, what it does is it counts how many of a particular field are in there. And we'll look at this. So I choose terms. Okay, whoops. Let me try that again. And then I got to choose a field. I'm going to choose, let's say we want it to know what were the different destination IPs that were that went places. So we could choose that. And then we're going to go ahead and leave it on count. And let's say we want to know the top 10. Right now it would be set for 5. We're going to change that to 10. And then we're going to go ahead and see what that would look like. And it's giving me a result. So we're going to change the time. There we go. Yeah, make sure the time is set to when there's records. Notice there wasn't a lot in the past 15 minutes, so it didn't have a lot to give me. But once I changed the time to an hour, there had been a lot of activity. Now we can change the formatting of how this looks because I don't like the middle missing, for instance. That just messes with me. We can go to options. And for instance, I don't like donuts. I love them in real life, but I don't like them for my pie charts. You know, actually, it almost looks better as a donut. Yeah, we'll leave it as a donut because I'd put 10 if there weren't as many. And then we can tell it to show labels, for instance. This is always useful to show labels. And then you can, if you don't want this all the way over to the right, you could put it on the bottom. So that might be a little easier for us, okay? We're going to make sure to save it and give it a name. So these were destination IPs. We'll just call it that for now. And let's say then we wanted to start a dashboard where we put multiple visualizations in. So what we do is go to the dashboards, create one. And then it will say add an existing or new object to this dashboard. So we would say add an existing. And here's our visualization, destination IPs. So we click that, and then there it is. And we can size it to how we want to size it. You can actually do some editing on how these names show up. You can do a lot of different settings. And if you come here and then edit the visualization, it'll take you back to where you made it so you can change it. Or if you customize the panel, you can tell it to either show the panel title or not. You can change the panel title. So there's a lot of customization that can be done. Canvas is another application where you can make graphs and charts. Canvas is created to basically make up for what was called a lack of artistic creativity with the original Cabana dashboards. So you can do a lot of interesting visualizations where, like, let's say you have a website with coffee cup, a coffee website, coffee shop. And you can actually use an image with coffee cups and then, use it as a graph with a percentage and it gets filled up and, cute things like that where you want to be more creative. That's where Canvas comes in. So again, the process, you go to visualizations and then you tell it that you want to create a new one. And then you can go from there. They have all sorts of different types. You can make gauges, data tables, heat maps, which really come in handy. There's all sorts of different. There's also a tool called Lens. Let me show you this real fast. This is really cool. Okay, let's say you just started using Kibana. You're still having some problems with what kind of graph might be the best to use. And let's say we're looking at Auditbeat. And we want to know what kind of event, we want to know the event IDs that are happening. So we can actually just drag this in. And then it'll actually suggest different possible ways of making this graph or making the visualization. And they're already pre-configured for you. So we can do a count overall. It would do an over time if we gave it some more time to work with. Yeah, I have to play with how much time it's going to need to be able to use that one. But as you can see, it's really useful how it automatically starts telling you, hey, you can make a data table and this is how you would do it. You could do a count of all the different IDs. And so that's just a really fast way to produce charts. And you can save each one. Let's say I wanted to save this data table. I said, oh, that looks really cool. Well, then I save it with save, and then I can go back and then remake another one and save that as a different visualization. So let's say I wanted one of the bar graphs. Save that, save as, give it a new name. As long as you give it a new name, it won't overwrite the previous visualization. So all of a sudden you have a data table, a bar graph, and the count overall visualizations. That's pretty much 2/3 of your dashboard right there. So that's why Lens is a very powerful tool. It's just been added just recently, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, it was just added to Kibana. And so it's really speeds up putting together visualizations, to make entire dashboards. So that's a good thing we went over that. And again, you create visualization, you have all the different ones to choose from, or you can choose Lens and it will actually start, telling you, hey, for this field, you might want to consider these visualizations. So all sorts of different ways of doing it. And then you would go to dashboards and then you would add those to your dashboards. And that's how you start building out. Just play around, be creative, think about what information is most important to you. And there are a lot of pre-made visualizations and pre-made dashboards that are really useful. Like this Auditbeat dashboard, you can click into, you can look at the logins just by clicking. We can look at all the processes just by clicking there. This is also a good idea of how to get, learn a little more about the most productive dashboard designs. It's just look at the default ones that have been loaded in. Even if you don't plan on using them, they can teach you something. And maybe you're not using Auditbeat, but you like the way it's laid out, these default dashboards, and then you can just, adapt that to your data. So plenty of powerful tools. You can visualize by specific graphs. You can use Lens and drag fields around. Look at the sample dashboards. And like I said, if nothing else, if you're doing security, the SIEM application is definitely very powerful with its ability to make timeline investigations. So again, I'd like to thank you for watching this video. On this video, we installed and configured Sysmon, which provided an extra layer of security logging. We installed Winlogbeat so that we could get all those security logs from a Windows device into Elastic. And then we went over how to visualize some more in Cabana by making your own visualizations and dashboards. I'd like to thank you for watching this video by Skills Build Training on how to set up the Elasticsearch in Cabana. Remember to like and subscribe, leave any comments and questions you have, and thank you again. Skills Build Training, where we teach you how to be an IT pro fast.